Hey everyone, so today I'm going to review Enshadowed by Creagh. This is the second book in the Nevermore series, and for those of you who are wondering, this review is going to be a spoiler-free review, so you can watch this if you haven't read Nevermore, so stay tuned. So Enshadowed was published by Atheneum books. You can find it in the YA section. This is the hardcover edition. It has 429 pages, and I rated it a 5 out of 5. I absolutely love this book. It did not disappoint as a sequel, which some sequels do, and I was actually kind of relieved that it was good, but at the same time I kind of knew it was going to be good. So let's talk about the cover. The cover is very haunting in a way, with the dark atmosphere and the dark undertones. The forest with the two main characters, it just represents the story and the atmosphere of the story really well, I think. And the word and the title, Enshadowed, describes the characters and events that occur in the book so well. And this book is just so beautiful, and it describes the story and the plot line and brings it to life. So this is the point where I'd usually read the summary of the book, but since this is a sequel, I'm not going to read the summary for obvious reasons. I don't want to spoil anyone. If you haven't read Nevermore, I don't want to spoil you. If you have read Nevermore and you know what the summary of this book is, then you already know. If you've read Enshadowed already, then you know, obviously. I loved the atmosphere in this book. It made me feel scared and terrified one minute, on the verge of tears the next, sad, happy, relieved, angry, just everything you could ever imagine or name, I felt it. It really took hold of me and didn't let me go when I was reading. I felt so engrossed in the plot and what was happening and the world that Creagh has created. But I love that the second book gripped me as equally as the first one, which I think is a great accomplishment because it's a sequel, and usually sequels aren't that gripping, but this one was. The characters were also amazing in this book. They all were fleshed out so well. I had already been introduced to them in Nevermore, but in this book, lots of them stuck to their personalities as they were in Nevermore, which I kind of felt like when I was reading, it was like coming home and visiting old friends again, which I enjoyed a lot. I was kind of glad that most of them hadn't changed drastically, except for one character. All of the characters in this book grew and developed in their own way, whether it was a tiny change or a big change, which I loved as well. I felt that Isabel grew and developed the most. In Nevermore, she looked like the blonde, happy, preppy cheerleader, but there is so much more to Isabel than meets the eye. She is a real girl with real emotions. She's strong-willed, determined, but not without fear. She still has her flaws, and she does what she has to reach her goal, which I thought was extremely admirable about her, and I really admired that about her and her as a person. I loved following her journey throughout this book. I felt everything she felt. I went through everything she went through. I felt so connected to her in this book, more so than Nevermore, because she grows so much in this book, and I really like her as a character. The next character I felt for in this book was Varen, for more reasons than one. I can't really say much about him in this book, but my heart feels for him as a person and for what he goes through and what he went through. It just touches my heart, and he is one of my favorite characters of all time, hands down. I adore him. I just love him. The plot in this book is extremely gripping. There were so many interesting and devastating twists throughout the story. The pacing was great. There were a lot of surprises in the plot that kept me on my toes and kept me in suspense almost the entire time I was reading. My nerves were all over the place when reading this book, but I really enjoyed that about the plot. On to the writing style. The writing style is flawless. I think it's so beautiful. The way Kelly Creagh writes leaves me absolutely astounded and breathless. Her writing has a sort of haunting quality to it that I devoured completely when reading. She brings the story, the characters, and the atmosphere of the book to life so well, and as I was reading, I could imagine everything so clearly and so vividly in my head that at some points it was terrifying, and other points it was beautiful and mysterious and haunting, and I couldn't get enough of her writing. Now on to what I didn't like about the book, which was pretty much nothing except for the fact that now I have to wait till 2013 for the next book. It's gonna drive me nuts. Oh, and the ending. It's not so much that I didn't like the ending, but oh my goodness, cliffhanger much? My heart was hurting so much at the end of this book. It still hurts. Still hurts a little bit in my heart. It aches. Oh my gosh. It ripped my heart out. Oh my gosh. Just read this book, okay? Overall, I enjoyed this book so much. The plot was great. Characters were fantastic. Writing was flawless. Atmosphere was breathtaking. Just an overall brilliant book and brilliant sequel. If you haven't read Nevermore, I highly recommend it. If you haven't read Enshadowed, highly recommend it. They're both great, great books, and I am seriously in love with this series. I simply cannot wait for the next book. I want my hands on it right now. I love this series, and it is definitely one of my all-time favorites. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I was a little crazy, but I just love this series, and I hope you do pick up Nevermore and Enshadowed because they're both amazing books, and I can't recommend them enough.